After 12 years of helping people with belly fat, I discovered the reason they get stuck with it. Even if you're doing everything right, belly fat is stubborn and takes a different approach. So in this video, I'm gonna tell you the things you're probably doing wrong, why the belly fat specifically isn't budging, and the changes you need to make to lose the belly fat for good. So first, we need to avoid the mistakes causing your belly fat to get stuck, because you can literally spend years wasting your time. So right off the bat, we have a pretty big problem, and it's that you don't know what you don't know, and that just leads to us spinning our wheels. I wanna stress that this should lead you to hope. We want to find something that you're doing wrong. It's not necessarily like a blame game, like here's what you're doing wrong and you should feel bad about it. If a person comes to me and they say that they are eating, 1,200 calories and they're taking 12,000 steps a day, I'd be like, I don't know. I don't know how to fix that. Usually what happens is I dive into their food log, I dive into their steps for my clients and everything, and I find out that what they believe to be true isn't true. And then I have this battle, this slight psychological, battle in their mind that I'm not blaming them. I'm not attacking them. This is a good thing that we found out that you're eating, 3,800 calories, because now we can adjust for it. So if you need help tracking your calories, I have a free protein cookbook. It is delicious. I just added queso to it. It's fire. I just made a video on it. And it actually helps you to the gram get the serving sizes. So you don't have to use portion sizes and any of that. It is so easy to make your meals and track them. So get that for free down in the description. This kind of reminds me of something that my daughter said, which she has this, like, we call it pink drink. It's just like a pitcher packet from Walmart or whatever that we mix into a big pitcher of water. And she said, it doesn't have sugar, Daddy, but it does have sugar. And she's not wrong. She doesn't fully understand what's going on, but that's the, the non-nutritive sweeteners that are in there. So it tastes sweet, but it doesn't have any sugar. And so we try to have her drink water or that if she's really feeling something, instead of something like orange juice or soda, because there's just a lot of sugar in that. So our goal here is to understand in depth our mistakes that we're making. Now, I'm not going to overwhelm you with information. I'm just saying we need to find the mistake. I'm going to go over the top mistakes that I see among my clients that, over the past 12 years I've been training them, and I just see these things pop up time and time again. So these are the top mistakes, and I'm going to list them out and then we're going to go over them. So tracking errors, and that's with food specifically. And then it's not tracking at all. Then we got oils and sauces. Then we have no scale, leading to guessing portion sizes. This one is a big one. We have healthy but high calorie foods. And then the last one on this list is hardly moving. This is the one that doesn't actually have to do with food. So that's just really low steps. So let's go over these one by one. So first is going to be tracking errors. Now, what I mean by this is that a person isn't accurately logging stuff that I find very common is going to be their protein. So if a person cooks chicken and they weigh out 4 ounces of chicken and then they eat 4 ounces of chicken, they're actually eating, I think, 5.3 ounces of chicken because it was, whenever it was cooked, it lost water. And so the calories are still all in there, but the calorie-free stuff, the water, left. And so the chicken literally shrinks. You can, look at this whenever you're grilling burgers or whatever. The burgers get smaller on the grill. That doesn't mean that any of the calories are gone. So if you cook meat and you are measuring it when it's cooked, as a rule across the board, doesn't matter what it is, divide it by 0.75. If it is raw, whenever you add it to the recipe or whatever it is, you just, measure out the 4 ounces of chicken. So you don't have to do the conversion there. Number 2 is going to be not tracking at all. That's just a person guessing, which goes right along with this no scale. So we're going to be kind of glossing over that and kind of going hand in hand here. But oils and sauces. So the problem with oils and sauces, there's nothing wrong with oils and sauces. They are fine to use in your diet. But if you don't measure them, especially if it's a fatty sauce, because oils are just fat, obviously. And then if it's something high fat like ranch or whatever, if you just put a little here, put a little there, I promise you're probably consuming 300 to 500 calories extra a day in oils and sauces. I remember I had one client, I could not for the life of me, and I'm pretty good at this. I can always spot the error in a person, like why they're not losing weight. I can always spot it and I can guide a client towards that. And that's why my program works so well. And for the life of me, I could not figure out why she could not lose weight. And I asked her, like, hey, how are you preparing your food? And she told me that she prepared it by, doing HelloFresh, which is a very accurate way of doing it. Like in theory, they should be really accurate. So I didn't think that was it. And I was like, I couldn't figure it out. I said, send me a picture of the recipes that you've made this week with HelloFresh. And I just noticed that each recipe called for like 7 to 9 tablespoons of oil in it and only made like 4 servings. So she was consuming a stupid amount of calories in oil. And so oils were a huge part of it for her. It, again, kind of goes into not tracking or inaccurate tracking. but the oil specifically is an issue. If you're using it as non-stick and you spray, or not spray, sorry, you drizzle the oil on the pan, and that's allowing the food to not stick, that needs to be counted because you're cooking with that oil. If you use PAM or non-stick spray, just don't count it. Just try to make it as fast as you can and make sure it's nice coated. But the next one, no scale and guessing portions, that goes right with the not tracking. So again, I'm going to kind of talk about that specifically here. So if you are just eyeballing your food, trust me, I wish we were accurate, but we are not. And we can't trust ourselves. If we cannot figure this out, you got to look at yourself and be like, what am I doing wrong? And if it's on this list, I promise this is probably your problem. And so guessing portion sizes is something you do not want to do. If you are, if you eat the same thing every day, you log it once, that's fine. That's not really what I'm talking about if it's relatively the same thing. I'm saying if you're looking at, chicken and pasta and you put on the pasta and you say, oh, that's about a cup of pasta. I promise you it's more than a cup of pasta. So just stop guessing portion sizes. This is going to empower you to actually lose the belly fat. It's going to empower you to lose the weight for good. It's worth it. The next one that I find people oftentimes get wrong is this healthy, like very healthy, but high calorie foods. So that's things like avocados, almonds, nuts, nut butters. They're all very healthy. They have good, healthy fats in them, and it is probably going to prevent a lot of, heart disease and cancers and stuff like that whenever you're eating those healthy oils. But if you are overweight and you can't get rid of the belly fat, that is going to negate or maybe even reverse the benefits you're getting from all those healthy foods. So just be careful with the avocados, be careful with the nuts and nut butters. If you're accurately logging all of it, it doesn't matter. But if you're not accurately logging it, you could surprise yourself accidentally. It's very easy. I've seen it with my clients several times. For a person to eat 500 calories in peanut butter on your, peanut butter sandwich would be 500 calories if they're slathering the peanut butter on there. It's just so high calorie and does not keep you full. Even if you accurately log with those, if it causes you to be hungry later, that's probably why you're not sticking to your diet, because an avocado, as high fiber as it is, avocado is probably a bad example. It is a little bit more filling, but still it's not going to fill you a bunch. If you do toast and avocado, it's a very low protein meal that is very high in calories. And the last one here, hardly moving, just very low steps. So if a person's logging their food and I see, hey, this food log is pretty good, I'll usually look at their steps and I'll see that they are just, man, they're hardly moving. If it's 5,000 or lower, you got to get that up. And a lot of times I'll see, some days a person will move 2,000 steps or 3,000 steps. That's just not enough. When a person tells me, yeah, but I can't walk more, it's like, well, then you can't lose weight. And so, you got to pick your battles here. And that's one battle that you gotta see through. You got to eat your steps. You got to track your food. If you're not doing those two things, then you're not going to lose weight. Of the people that don't track food, I should mention this real quick, because there is a segment of, like Instagram influencers that will tell you, like to eat intuitively or not tracking your food, or they stopped tracking their food and they mentally got healthy because of it. And okay, there might be a mental component there. I'm not denying that at all. But look at the people that are telling you that. They're extremely active. They do this for a living. Of course, when you're a professional athlete at that point, because you're doing cardio all the time and you're working out all the time, you have plenty of muscle mass, you might not have to track your food. But for the average person, we just don't have enough room in our diet to not track it and not be careful with it. Now let's get into why belly fat is different, because it is different, and that'll help whenever we go over the changes to actually lose it. So you're not wrong. Belly fat is harder to lose. It is stubborn. Belly fat's the hardest to lose because it requires the least amount of calories and the most amount of movement. It's towards the end of your fat loss program. Since it's the hardest to lose, it is a recipe for quitting if you don't have the right plan and you don't know what's ahead. And I'm going to tell you that now. So let's say there's two runners. One runs way too fast the first half, and then the second half is 2 to 3 minutes slower. The other paces themselves and does the whole last mile fastest thing that all the world records do. That last mile fastest is what almost every world record in running, at least with distance, does, is they try to make their last mile the fastest by intentionally holding off as they go. The runner that had the plan sets the world record. The runner that just kind of ran and gassed out, well, they gas out and they can't finish. That's kind of like fat loss in that the last mile is the hardest and the slowest, but it is where the finish line is. And so it's important that you push through. So belly fat is the last to go. And like I said, that is why it's stubborn. It's the last to go as a defensive mechanism. If you think like a caveman or cavewoman, if you got stabbed or something or got, a boar hit you in the gut, it's more likely to protect your organs. And so it wants to keep that belly fat. That's not necessarily a bad thing. It just means it's last. This causes people to get discouraged and quit right before they would start seeing that progress. And so think of it Like if everything else, if your arms and your legs are looking a little bit better and you're like, man, but why do I still have this belly? If you just would have kept going, and it is the hardest part, and we're going to talk about how to make it a little bit easier, but if you just would have kept it going, then you would start to see it shrinking, and man, that's motivating. So we need to systematically adjust our plan. We need a system behind it to make decisions for you. And that's what we're going to go over in the next section. And that's what's important to lose this belly fat. So I'm just going to encourage you, do not give up on yourself. Don't hop diets. Don't feel it out and change up workout programs. It's not you. It's patience and knowing that your plan will work. Your adjustment plan that we're about to go over is going to work. By the way, if you want to walk to lose your belly fat, I have a free walking off 50 plan in the description as well. You're going to love it. So here are the changes that you need to make in order to lose the belly fat for good. Changes to plans, and this is the problem here, are often way too drastic, and it leads to failure because we're suffering. So we're going to go over the system to decide how to make those changes. So let's say you want to make a car faster. You could get a new engine, you could upgrade the tires, you could reduce the weight, you could upgrade the exhaust. You could do all of that, you could do one of them. Imagine letting the engine rot and always just upgrading your tires. Eventually, the car would fail. That would never work. You would never get a faster car just by upgrading the tires. That's how we typically approach fat loss though. And that's a major problem. We either just cut calories or we just do a bunch of cardio and then we suffer in one direction. So if you're really cutting calories, of course you're going to give up because eventually you're going to have to eat almost nothing. And if you're really increasing your movement to make up for the fact that you're not cutting calories, of course you're going to give up because it sucks to go in the gym every single day for an hour and do a grueling cardio session. So I'm going to show you my dial system. I literally have used this for like 8 or 9 years. I did a video on it like kind of far back in my channel, but I'm going to go over it quickly here. So this is the dial system. I call it the dial system because these just look like dials that you're going to turn up or down like radio dials or something. Don't mind the fact they're kind of different sizes. They're all just supposed to be the same size. We have steps, workouts, protein, and calories. Obviously, by dialing down your calories, you're going to lose weight. That's assuming that you don't accidentally move less. And so the dial system points out that we need to be tracking all of these things so that we can tweak down the calories, tweak up the protein, which is going to burn some more calories while, just by consuming more protein, you're going to burn more calories because it takes more energy to digest. We can tweak up the steps and we can tweak up the workouts just a little bit in cardio. Instead of doing an hour of cardio, we can do 25 minutes of cardio, every day. Or, let's say you start off with 20 minutes and then you tweak 3 days up to 25 or whatever. So we're going to go over some examples, but that's how it works. So like I said, let's say that you cut your calories, but instead of cutting them by 500 in order to lose a pound of body fat a week, you cut them by 150. And then you increase your steps by, let's say, 1,000 a day. So you're increasing your cardio by 5 minutes, you're increasing your steps by 1,000, you're decreasing your calories by 150, and let's say you increase your protein by 20 grams a day. That right there, you're not going to feel suffering in any one direction. You might hardly notice the changes, but there's so many changes, and again, small tweaks, that you're going to start losing body fat. Those extra 1,000 steps might burn something like an extra 100 calories a day. And then you already took off 150, so now you're in a 250 calorie additional deficit. The additional 5 minutes on each cardio session, that could burn an extra 300 calories a week. And then the extra protein, maybe that burns an extra 50 calories a day. That right there is going to put you, whatever that ends up adding up to, in a calorie deficit that you hardly notice because you're not suffering all by taking away the calories or all by increasing the cardio. So I'm going to tell you how to make these changes based off of your weight loss graph. So I recommend taking your weight every single day. That way you can see the trend. Ignore the day in, day out fluctuations. Every day you're looking at the trend. Is your weight going down? If so, please just keep it. Don't try to accelerate it. If it's going down like really slowly, let's say a pound a month or something like that, okay, make some tweaks, make them really small. If you notice that your weight is flat, and it should be either flat or going down, I've never really seen a person giving some sort of effort towards their diet and their workouts and this dial system and not at least maintaining. So if it's flat, you definitely need to make some changes. And I would do that after like maybe 2 weeks. It shouldn't be the first 2 weeks. You're going to get stuck at some point. And if you see 2 weeks that it's kind of flat, that's whenever I would make these changes. And I would use the examples I just gave. So move your calories down by 150, move your steps up by 1,000. And all these things need to be tracked in order for you to be able to actually make these adjustments, right? The workouts, I would add 5 minutes to however many days of cardio you're doing. And then the protein, you could either keep it or tweak it up a little bit. It'll help you keep more full and probably naturally lower your calories, but also it's going to burn more calories due to the thermic effect of food, which is just you burning calories by consuming more protein. None of this will really matter if you can't stick with your diet though. So I talk about how to avoid quitting your diet right here. So go watch that video next.